Good morning, everyone. Let's wait 3-5 minutes to see whether there are more people coming, and then we will start, okay? Thanks. You are the first one, right? Okay, let's put it. It's in alphabetical order. Yeah. Okay, let's. ¿Perdón? Sí. Es que la otra era la última. Ah, vale, sí, puedes. Good morning, everyone. I think let's get started. I wanted to say a few words before giving the floor to the first speaker, so I think I should start myself now. Well, first of all, I introduce myself. I'm José Miguel Rubio. I'm working at the European Commission, the EU Research Innovation, on secondment from the National Geographic Institute of Spain. I have been invited to chair this session because I'm following up very closely some of the projects that you will see here today, so-called citizens observatories. So you will see today in this full track of citizen science and crowdsourcing sessions that we have the whole day. You will see a very nice example of projects and activities that are showing how actually this explosion of new ICT technologies, the pervasive internet, smartphones, portable devices, are leading to a dramatic increase in the crowdsourcing and citizen science-related activities, in which citizens are not only recipients of information, but they are actually also producers. This has led to this concept of prosumers, producers and consumers of information. There is a huge potential, and you will see from some of these projects as well, for this information to be combined and integrated with other kinds of data, especially official, authoritative data, especially within the context of helping achieve data collection targets, in the context of monitoring programs, also in support to environmental regulatory compliance. This is especially relevant in the context of when it comes to monitor large areas, especially cost-effective when we need frequent sampling. But there is not only about collecting data. Citizen science, crowdsourcing has have a number of other side effects, I would call. Some of them were actually mentioned yesterday by the Deputy Director General of DG Environment, Joana. She mentioned how citizen science and crowdsourcing in his speech yesterday at the opening session, how this information can actually serve or can actually serve to empower citizens. Citizens can have a more active role in environmental decision-making, and through these kind of activities, citizens can themselves address environmental issues that are of their concern. Citizen science and crowdsourcing is also about raising awareness, especially with regards to the challenges, societal challenges that we are facing today, like climate change, helping building resilient societies. And there are many other benefits, but there are concerns, of course, as well, about the a wider use of this kind of information. And the first concern that I'm sure we all share is about data quality. There are several reports that have been published which really demonstrate that once quality assurance procedures have actually been set, this kind of information can be perfectly valid. But as I said, quality assurance methods have to be put in place. Also, another element which is important is about documentation of this kind of information. I'm talking about metadata. I'm not going to convince you in this forum how important is metadata to reuse and use this kind of information, of any kind of information. I think across the whole sessions today, we will discuss about metadata and data standards for this kind of information. We'll discuss about data management issues of this kind of information and other open issues such as long-term curation, discoverability of this kind of information, and so on. So, well, I wouldn't like to extend myself more, but there is a clear and increasing awareness about the benefits of this kind of information, especially in the environmental field. Even if inspiring itself, it doesn't say really anything about handling this kind of data, but the fact that we have 3 sessions today and a workshop yesterday and on Monday on this kind of information shows that there is really an appetite for this information and to see how this information can really fill in situ gaps in Earth observation and geospatial information. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce now Tomas Mildorf from the University of West Bohemia, and he will explain how open crowdsourcing data has been combined with other kind of data to create an open land use map. So, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tomas Mildorf from the University of West Bohemia, together with my colleague Otakar Čerba from the same institute, and with Dmitry Kožuch from Help Service Remote Sensing, all of us from the Czech Republic. We prepared this presentation, which summarizes some 2 main outcomes of the SDR4Apps project. This includes open land use map and smart points of interest. I will start with the first one. Open land use map is an initiative that started back in 2013 in Plan for Business project, and it's focused on creating a land use map of various level of detail, and the overall aim is to cover the whole Europe. We are harmonizing and integrating various data sets into one common data model, which is based on the INSPIRE data specifications on land use. We are using the classification of INSPIRE called HiLux. We use, of course, uniform visualization, and we are also going to produce linked data out of this data set. That's a future activity. Here are some examples of data sets we merged or we integrated. So we commonly use core inland cover, which has the level of detail on the European level, then urban atlas covering the major cities in Europe, and then we go into more local data sets or local detail data sets. For example, in the Czech Republic, the free and downloadable cadastre data, or LPIS, information land parcel identification system. So we are integrating data of different level of detail and different geometry, which is sometimes challenging, but it produces a fairly good result. Here is the methodology of data integration. This is the case in the Czech Republic. So we take the data of the highest level of detail, and where these data are not available, in areas where it's not available, we use data of lower level of detail. So in this case, we used the cadastre data as the highest level of detail, and where we couldn't get any cadastre data in vector format, we used LPIS, and where this is not available, we used the urban atlas, and eventually, where urban atlas is not available, we use the core inland cover. This is an example of mapping different classifications. As you can imagine, every data set will have different classification following different standards or proprietary standards or non-standards. So we have to map everything from the original data set classification to Hilux. So this is an example of urban atlas to Hilux. Currently we have open land use map available for the Czech Republic, for Latvia, for Slovakia, and part of Belgium, Flanders, and newly also since last week for Austria. The Austrian open land use map was done in cooperation with the Danube Reference Data and Service Infrastructure, which is an initiative led by JRC focusing on the Danube region and the Danube strategy. Data are accessible through OGC services, and you can also download all the data in shapefile format through a simple interface. And here are the links to the data sets with all the information and some more features. So this is the open land use map. The other data set which we created is smart points of interest. Points of interest are point locations that someone may find useful or interesting. It can include a point of interest can be a cathedral in Barcelona, but it can be a city, Barcelona itself. It can be Spain. It can be any kind of touristic attraction. It can be any transport point, such as gas station and so on. The main features of this data set is that we, again, combine heterogeneous data, which is quite fairly complex process, as you will see on the other slide, an example of data harmonization. We created data schema, which I will show in the next slide briefly as well, which is based on available non-standardized data schemas or data models, because there is no standard, or Inspire doesn't provide any standard for smart points of interest, for points of interest in general. So we did define this one, and it's ready for discussion. So we will be happy for any feedback on that. And data are published as Sparkle endpoint, and they are published under the ODBL license. So here you can see the data harmonization process. The green cells are the data sources, and the other cells are procedures, techniques, how to get to the harmonized data set. So for each data set, I can say there is different process. We because if something is in JSON, or if something is in KML, something is in Excel sheet, we have to take different approaches for data harmonization. And this is the data model, the main features, including the classification, geometry, metadata, links to other data sources such as Wikipedia and so on. And here is the data model as a UML model. And here are highlighted the main features of the data model. So I will publish this presentation on the SDI4Apps website. So if you want to get into more details on this and get some feedback on the data model, we will be very happy to receive that. Smart points of interest includes more than 24 million points of interest all over the world, and it's the largest open database in the world. As I said, all data are published as 5-star data, as linked to open data. We use two kinds of classification. One is mandatory, which is the base classification, the navigation application. So we have 10 categories in that, and then we use the classification that is used in OpenStreetMap. Here are the categories based on the base classification. So it includes natural features, transportation, professional and public points of interest, and so on. And here is just a screenshot of the Sparkle endpoint where you can query the database. And my final slide, which will conclude my presentation, includes the link to the data set. So where you can find map viewer, where you can view all the points of interest. You can find their presentation, including the data model, and of course the link to the Sparkle endpoint. So thank you very much. If there are any questions.
Thanks, Tomas. I would propose to have couple of questions after each presentation, so we don't really forget them. And maybe if we have time at the end, we can also have some little discussion. So, any question for Tomas? No? Yeah, Joana. Maybe there is a microphone.
I'm just curious, how difficult could be extend this to other countries? I mean, the development, gathering all this information for other countries.
Do you mean for the open land use map?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fairly easy, and the process of the data takes about 2-3 days. It's mainly because there are lots of features, so just going through all the features and reclassifications takes time. But otherwise, it's semi-automatic process which can be done in this time frame for every country or for whole Europe, basically. It's more about availability of data. And in these countries, there are some data available. As I mentioned, in the Czech Republic, it's cadastre data where you can get really high detailed open land use map. In Austria as well, in Flanders. In Slovakia and Latvia, we used mainly OpenStreetMap, which can be used in other countries as well. It's available in all Europe. But it's not as interesting data set because it's still kind of high or low level of detail. So now we got in contact with Lina from Finland, so we will get data from Finland, which are also open. So so we will be happy for any feedback from you. If you know about any data sets that could be used for this, we will be happy to process it and create an open land use map for your country.
I think Hugo has.
Thank you. In the process of the production of the open land use map, have you got any edge matching processes in place? So, in other words, if you've got an area where you've got high-level data available, and you compare this to a lower-level data, like a data set like Urban Atlas, you will have at the fringe of your high-level availability, small areas which are perhaps not covered in the high-resolution data, but
Yeah.
are intrinsically about the same area.
Yes.
What happens then?
Well, we are exploring this because quality of this data set is still maybe questionable because we are combining low-level, high-level detailed data with just core inland cover and other European level data sets. And we identified some problems in, let's say, cadastre data in the Czech Republic when we compare it with those other data sets such as Urban Atlas. So we don't do, I think, at this point, any kind of conflict resolution. We just use the one which is in the highest level of detail. And if there is any, sometimes it's missing, we use from the one at the top or above.
Okay, thanks. I think if there is no other question, I would like to thank again Tomas. For each speaker, I would like, in case you, of course, consent to release your presentation, to sign the consent form that you will find in my table. So the next speaker, which I'm sure will also speak about many of the issues related to data quality that have arisen in the first project, is Karel from the Czech Center for Science and Society, which will tell us how to bridge the two worlds of national and EU SDI and crowdsourcing bottom-up applications. So please, Karel.
Okay, thank you very much. I am happy that I have chance to speak here about this because I see this as very important to work on some integration and reusing of could be crowdsourcing data together with other data, mainly if the data are not available. Yes? And I would like to stress at the beginning that the idea on our side is not very new. I will go back to the INSPIRE conference 5 years ago, where our team, it was, I think, in the time of Plan for All project, we stressed the idea of a force-way concept, and we stressed there already this fact that we have could be three types of basic data from commercial sector, public administration, and the community. And to really benefit from SDI, is important to thinking how we will be able to reuse this data. Because on one side, I am sure that if, of course, data will be validated, data will be tested, that public bodies could profit from, for example, crowdsourcing data, because a lot of information could come from this data to public sector. On opposite side, for example, the different community crowdsourcing data and other could benefit also from public data. You saw in the Tomas presentation that we are able to build, for example, some open data which could be managed by community crowdsource on the base of the public data. And this is something what we see as very important, and I am very happy that now they start such movement and start such discussion, and that we are moving. So here you can see what about we are working already third year, we are almost on the end, and what Tomas presented was the part of our work, and we are working on the concept how really we will be able to manage and merge data coming from different things, and of course not using only for the purposes of public bodies, but could be also for commercial purposes, because what we done and what we tested on other hackathon, for example, this open land use in the combination with smart point of interest could give also some good information to, for example, investors who plan to build some tourist facilities. Yes, you are able to combine this data, you are able to put this data together, and on the base of such analysis, which are much more statistical, yes, because the data are not validated, but on the base of such type of analysis, you can receive some areas which, for example, could be interested for some type of investment. And this is what about we are trying to speak in our project much more from the point of view of businesses and private sector than from public sector, but also it is possible to find some solution for the public sector, and now we are also working with this concept and combination data, for example, on some educational scenarios, and our next task, what we are preparing, is to invite students as the source of crowdsourced data, because young generation is usually very interested about a new solution, and we are now starting to cooperate and build the network of schools. And again, this data we plan that could be used for other schools as education purposes, but also there could come interesting information which could be used in other area. Of course, and we discussed this here long time yesterday, it requires a lot of requests on the base of data management, privacy issue, licensing. With data where Tomas showed this open land use or smart point of interest, we had a really big problem with licensing. We had 3 or 4 open licenses, but we recognize that we are not able to put data together, that these licenses are such that they doesn't allow to put data together. So there is number of problems. We are a lot of focus, of course, on the technology, but what we recognize and what was discussed here during the hackathons, that there is a lot of management issue which are important and which has to be discussed during these days. So, as I already mentioned, yes, there is the motivation that public sector could need the data, and of course it's good if we are thinking about this combination to thinking what exists. Yes, we can discuss, we can criticize if Inspire is design optimal or not, but on other way, we don't have anything other, yes? And I think that this our exercise, what we are doing, is also very important for the Inspire, because we are providing this with relatively very large data sets in the Europe, and we are sure that from this our experiences, we are also now able to give some feedback to Inspire team about the current standards, and in 1 month we are invited to GRC to speak with Inspire team about our experiences with this data and with this work. And of course, I mentioned Inspire, but Inspire is not so much dealing with data collection. So there is GEOS, which is much more focused on this, and of course, we also expect strong interrelation with GEOS activity. And what is important that there exists a project for Citizens Observatory where people are working on the relatively standardized form. But if you will look in every country, in every city, there exist thousands and thousands now application based on some crowdsourcing of the data as for what happened in our city, what is there. But the biggest problem is that the most of the systems is proprietary, and reusage of this data is very, very difficult, and it is very difficult to integrate this into such structures like Inspire, Copernicus, GEOS, and this is why I think that we need to have a broader discussion, that we need to have the cooperation and also promotion, that also for community is important to try to work on some standardize. We need thinking about API. I think that because most of application is done by non-GI people, that we have OGC services, but probably it's good to thinking also about non-OGC API, because for people who are not from our community, very often these OGC standards are a little terrible. And I can say that also for people who has big technological knowledge, some standards like sensors observation services is not something very easy. Yes? So this is, I think, what about we have to speaking, and it is the standard, it is to agree some API protocols, and what we are also now trying to introduce as a new concept in a SDI project is not to share only data, but to be able to share and exchange with other the maps, because you are able to derive thematic maps. But how could be some teacher or some major in some small city will be able to discover WMS, WFS services and prepare the map? So we think that other steps is go a little far and to thinking not only about the sharing of the data, but also sharing maps. Yes, this we see as something what also could help to the communities. Some examples. I will speak much more about SensLog. This is what we are trying to develop is web server for sensor data combining OGC services with non-OGC API. Yes. We made here, I think, a good test during the hackathon, and we succeed to transfer data from some citizens observatory into the system, so seems that this could be the way. Here you can see this example of the sharing of the maps. Yes, this is coming from OTN project, and you are able to combine different sources and then use, for example, Facebook or Twitter and share permalink to these maps and share easy such type of information. We are trying to elaborate more such type of things like using this like whiteboard in the style of the Google Docs, yes, to have some map dots where people will be able to work on the common maps. So this is other, what about we were here during the hackathon and what we see as some promising. And I mentioned that really I am very happy that in the agreement with the Commission we were able to organize here this hackathon, that I think that for community it was useful. I hope that it was also useful for GRC and European Commission, and also that today we have three sessions related to this topic. So I think that it is also the chance to speak. Yes, here you can see that during hackathon we done also some. This is application which help you to check open land use data, or this is the first step to this whiteboard. So here are contacts, and the last slide, I think that the presentation will be on conference web page.
Thanks, Karel. So I'm sure you will have some questions to Karel, so please go ahead, because I do have. No? Then I will share at least one personal comment. Take into account that we are speaking here about integrating information coming from citizens together with official data. My first question is about how to handle these differences in quality and procedures, how to really manage this integration, and how is your experience in that field? Because I think for me this is the most important step to clarify and to ensure that these kind of integrations can be taken up by public authorities.
I think that it is really a process, and I have to say that we spent in our project more than 1 year about the discussion about these different topics, and we look on the possibility how to be able to put this data together. We look on some model how to decrease the number of the problem. For example, for this open land use, we decided not to merge this in one side, but divided this all information on the base of border of nodes, and to calculate for every country this open land use nodes by nodes. Yes, because with this, for example, if we have urban atlas, we can decide it, okay, for all this area we will take data only from urban atlas. But in any case, it is the process of learning, and we had to make a lot of tests. What will be the better? At first stage, we thought to put layers only and to trace switch between layers. Then we start to combine these layers, and we are working on the improvement. But what is also the idea now is to give tools to the people, and we will start now to comment the errors and improve this data, because as already Tomas mentioned, yes, in the Czech we are using as geometry cadastre maps. But what we recognize that could be 40% of objects in this cadastre map is not good classified, because this land use is not main topic of the cadastre. So, for example, we had to analyze, and we took the classification with highest probability from other data set. So in all cases, if we are trying to use the best geometry and to classify this best geometry. But of course, if you have only land cover, OpenStreetMap, it is much more complicated. We know that this map has some problems. Also with smart point of interest, we have now huge things, because as we are integrating different databases, what we recognize, many points is replicated in many databases. Yes, people are putting this in some citizens observatories. The data are in the same data are in OpenStreetMap. So we have the replication of the data, and again we need to working and thinking about validation algorithm. And the question is, what is which object remove, or how to do this. Till now, a lot of things is under the solution, and we will be happy also to speak with other community experience, how this could be improved. Again, there will be chance for the people to comment every point and to say, okay, this is correct, this is not correct.
Okay. Thanks, Karel. I think about questions of conflation and duration of data, we'll have another project later on COBWEB, which I'm sure they will also speak about this. So is there any question for Karel? No. So I think we have, again, Karel.
I promise that it is last presentation.
Yes, but this time you will speak us about SensLog and this platform to integrate sensor observation.
Okay, I am speaking on the behalf of our team who is working about SensLog, and relatively SensLog is not a very new product. We start to design this product something like 6 years ago. And at the beginning, we were really focused to build a data server based on sensors web enablement standards, and implement these standards for the sensors. We work also on the client, but after some experimentation and after some time, we recognize that to work only with this sensors observation is not easy, and we start a little support also other possibility. So the SensLog is integrated solution for sensors network. We are now using this not only for classical sensors, but as yesterday was demonstrated, there is VGI profile, but the system is also possible to use, for example, for car or any moving equipment monitoring. Mainly, I think that, I don't know if Tomas will mention this, we are now using this mainly for monitoring of agricultural machinery. So we are trying to design something what is relatively open and what is offering many possibilities. It is written in Java, and main developer is this Michal Kepka, who is now working on this. We can say that this product has already some years of practical usability, mainly in the area of car and agriculture machinery monitoring. So it is not something new, it is something what is already running some things. So it could integrate sensors network, static sensor, meteorological station, and the database model is based on the standardized data. We are looking on OGC observation and measurement, because things that it is, if we are sometimes criticizing, for example, sensors observation services protocol, the data model is something useful, and as I mentioned, we offer now all this OGC standard, but we also offer some sets of REST API on both sides, on the side of querying data, but also on the side of putting data into the database, because we see this REST API mainly as important for developers of different crowdsourcing application, because this is the way how they can easily develop something on smartphones, and through this REST API send this into the database. So this is what we see, for example, as very useful for crowdsourcing information. Here you can see the basic model. I think that will be a little difficult to go detailedly through. If anybody will be interested, all this data model, all this is also on GitHub, so you can go on GitHub and learn much more about this, and I think that it is well described in many our publications. What is important that we start work on the database model for VGI extension, because for example, to be able to put such type of the data like photos, videos, voice, this we see as very important, because it is not necessarily only photos, but we know that, for example, people who are thinking about birds, to monitor the voice of birds is usually very more important than make photos, because make photos is very often very difficult. So we are trying to support this different type of the data, and to offer the possibility how this data could be stored on the database. And I think that yesterday, when we took the databases from the Citizens Observatory, we start transform this data afternoon, and during the presentation of the result, it was already show the result of this transformation. So since that this is in line what is done also in many citizens observatories. So as we mentioned, that the main task for this VGI extension is to support mobile developers, because this is our way how we would like to help a little standardize this type of applications, that to offer some standardized interfaces, standardized tools. And anybody who would be interested to use the tool, you can go on a GitHub, install this on your server, and run this on your servers also, this application. And we will be very happy if there will be some cooperation in this area. We can offer our servers, and we can also offer to use this system. Here you can see some examples of usage. Some classical examples is for it is for agriculture monitoring. It is or groundwater monitoring. So this is the classical task. Here I mentioned this farm telemetry. So we had set of API for analyzing of agriculture machinery, in which we are back with LPs, in which parcel of LPs machinery work, how long it work. We develop for this purpose also special set of API, which will be also public if people will be interested about this. And last things, and it was mainly done during the hackathon, is this crowdsourcing application. So you can see the possibility to now to measure the point, to make the photos, to put the photos to the system, put the attributes, and send this to the system. Or other things also where we are thinking to use SensLog is to crowdsource information and store there also the type of other objects than point, yes, because in many cases you need to work with area or lines. So the most of current application is mainly working in crowdsourcing application with the points. So here you can see in applications the links on source code, documentation. You can look this running instance, and for visualization we use our NH layers, so you can also look on the codes. There is also the code of this crowdsource application, which was done in Edge layers. It is also on GitHub, so if anybody will be interested to test and work with this, it's a chance, and we will be happy for any feedback. Okay, I think that it's all from my side. If there is any question.
Thanks, Karel. Yeah, any question for Karel about SensLog or any other? No? I have a question, but it's a bit more general. Okay, I mean, I know it happened. I know some citizen science community, and I think all these tools are fantastic to ensure the discoverability and help the standardization of this information. But many of those who are actually collecting the data are not necessarily geospatial engineers or experts in IT. So how to bridge that gap? I mean, for me, a bit of a worry about the use of trying to help standardize and to try to develop these tools is how really make sure that those who are on the field are really using them, take into account that they are not necessarily IT experts.
What we are trying to hidden is the complexity of the data model, yes? This is why I am telling that we are offering this non-OGC API, which is relatively very simple and I think well understandable for could be some developer, not GI person. So this is that the task is to hide the model and to have the API send information, query information in a very, very easy form. Yes, who is ready to work with OGC standard? He can use this OGC, but who not? There is this possibility of this API, and in reality, with this API, you will be able not only connect your mobile application, but also some standard sensors. Yes, so this is the way how we are thinking.
Okay. Thanks. Any question? No? Okay, so thanks again, Karel. The next speaker is Tomas Reznik from Masaryk University, who will speak about the Foodie project, VGI for precision farming. So, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning. This project is also an example of so-called living lab, because I'm coming from university, as you have already heard. But on the other hand, we have the commercial partners, some of you already know, like Karel, Charvat, and also others. And I believe that this is the right approach to support the European research and how to create ad hoc teams related to the scope of the project. And since I have mentioned that I am from the academic background or academia, I would like to start with a definition because we at universities are always passionate to start with a definition. So for that reason, what could be a foodie? Because this is the word I will use during the whole presentation. First, it could be a person who really likes to eat, even though sometimes he or she doesn't feel hungry. The B, it could be a project that is supporting farm-oriented open data in Europe. Or C, it could be a cloud-based infrastructure developed to support farmers within and also beyond Europe. Do you know your answer already? Yeah, so it's a nice situation where A, B, and also C are correct. So now I can move, or I can even skip the most boring slide, which is usually about the project background. And I would like to only mention the website, the Foodie Project EU, where you can find all the relevant information about the partners, about the pilots that we are performing, and so on. And for that reason, I will start talking more and more about the VGI. The first one is that the basic motivation is that according to the one study of our colleagues from Danish University, a typical farmer in the European Union, when he or she would like to be efficient in the production phase, when he or she would like to also receive subsidies, when he or she would like to also reduce the environmental burden, has to communicate with about 40 channels, 40 organizations, and so on. So those are the dimensions, the economic and also the environmental one. And fortunately for us, and fortunately also for the whole community, the geospatial information is a bridge. It really seems that all kinds of that information are based on the geospatial information. So for that reason, collecting or having relevant geospatial data for the precision farming, precision agriculture is one of the really key factors to be successful in economic and also environmental aspects. And so for that reason, we are developing the so-called Foodie platform, as you have heard already, a cloud-based solution, which offers you the front-end applications like the marketplace where you can trade your data, where you can exchange it according to the INSPIRE principles. You can search for your spatial data and services that you are interested in a catalog, or you can see your data if they are publicly available through maps. So the logical question here would be what kind of data sets are in? So we are using some of those who have been already mentioned, like the open land use, open transport map, and so on. Of course, the sensor measurements, which I will talk a little bit in the detail. We are using satellite data, not just Landsat, but also the Sentinel data, just to follow the Copernicus program. And based on that, we are recomputing the vegetation indices, typically the normalized difference vegetation index, as well as the moisture indices and other related. We are also computing the so-called yield potential. That means if there are some areas where no matter what you do, no matter how many fertilizer you will insert, you won't increase the yield. And this happens. This is the reality. Many small farmers knows that. Many bigger farmers trying to discover that areas where they are. So for that reason, we need at least 5 years measurements from satellites. Usually we are trying to use 8 years and compare it with the real yield data, have a correlation, and compute what is available. And this is what we are also offering during the testing phase so far, about 5-6 months ago that we have started. We have several APIs, so no matter whether you are just some kind of farmer who is not interested in any API or anything like that, so you can directly use our applications, or if you are a fan, you can use or develop your own application and connect to the APIs directly. And as you can see, those are the OGC based, but also some IT generic APIs, because the special doesn't have to be, spatial doesn't have to be a special one. So for that reason, just to combine and bridge both words, we need to support more protocols. So coming more and more to the crowdsourcing and the VGI, if you will ask me where is the VGI, I will give you very informatic and geospatial accurate answer. So those are the coordinates, which are our two VGI test cases. The first one is in Spain, and we are using that for tracking or providing information about the conditions in a winery. In that case, some operator which is performing another operations, not just having the VGI as a primary task, is doing his or her operation, and during that, he or she typically found some kind of disease. It's usually really tied to the negative things, like diseases, mildews, droughts, and so on. So for that reason, the operator is the person who is really in the field and that can report that to the headquarters of a farm to have some kind of action. And so for that reason, we are using cell phones, because it's just one of the thousands cell phone apps, as it has been already mentioned by my predecessors. This one is targeted to the information related to vineyards, and this is sent to the headquarters of a farm to a desktop. The second example is from the Czech Republic, and it's very specific because, as far as I know, we got the biggest VGI I have ever seen. It's a tractor. So you can imagine that we were not allowed to show it here or bring it here to have some kind of demo. But anyway, this is a very special, and I very much like this example because first, it's a VGI that is not just something developed from scratch, but it's building on the existing technologies. And the existing technologies is, first of all, hardware of a tractor. So we are really, our unit is mounted into the tractor, and with the cables combined with the hardware of a tractor to monitor the speed, to monitor also the different styles of operating the tractor, for instance, also the ground, how much is, when performing some operation, how much deep in the ground was that operation performed, and other things like that, which is accomplished by the GPS. So you can see one of the very first results, which we have called the tractor art, which are the trajectories typically within 2 or 5 seconds period that we are measuring, not to be overwhelmed by the data that we measure. And you can produce several kind of applications and several kind of information based on the data, which is typically not only the speed, not only, for instance, the fuel consumption, but also planning and so on, and also the evidence, because you know how much fertilizer, how much pesticide you have inserted at a certain place. So you have immediately also some basic nodes, some basic data for creating the reports for the environmental burden, for asking for the subsidies, and so on. So this is, for instance, the print screen of an interactive application for a farmer that can see, that can filter, for instance, a different speed, different days of the week, or different hours, and to see in real life how was the operations that he or she performed at the field. So when I start to wrap up, I'm very glad that at the Inspire conference I can say and I can confess that the Inspire O&M, by that I mean that document with a quite long name, where I'm also a co-author, has been proved as a valid way of really managing the VGI information. On the other hand, as mentioned by Karel, as mentioned by almost a dozen of other research projects during the hackathon, the OGC SOS has really the performance issues. When we are at the testing stage, within a research project, within one pilot, within one farm, it's okay. But this means, by the way, one farm, 10 megabytes of data of tracking of vehicles a day, typically for the Czech farm. And the second barrier is no multimedia support. Perhaps if you are interested in response time, usually it could be up to 20 seconds. And you can imagine that an application where a user has to wait 20 seconds is meaningless. So for that reason, the SensLog application, which I don't have to introduce, is currently combining both approaches. So it has some XML-based operations, which are the primary one to discover what does the server offer, what kind of sensors are there, what do they measure, and so on. But the GeoJSON, more IT-related protocol, is used for direct encoding of the measurement values, just to have really the performance. This is what you have seen already. What I would like to stress that this is just the extension, and this extension is extensible, scalable also. So for that reason, you can also shape it as you want in your domain. About the barriers, for instance, we have the multimedia, but we don't have the support of UAVs and synchronizing the video and telemetry. This is still a challenge that we right now know that we could not really solve within the Foodie project, and this will remain as a challenge for the ongoing projects. So the lessons learned, the pros, definitely O&M as ISO and also as its Inspire modification, the way forward. The combination of the geospatial data and the IT data or IT encoding seems the most promising. And the VGI data integrations are feasible. We had during hackathon yesterday just one test case that we had our Foodie project, we had the Citizens project. For the first time on Monday we have heard about that project, about details of the data. And on Tuesday we have integrated 20 gigabytes of data into the SensLog. So this is really feasible, this is something that could be done. On the other side, especially for the precision farming, farmers doesn't distrust to any IT where the data are aggregated. And if there are big data, it's even worse. And one of the aspects is that if there is a cloud-based solution, we had, for instance, a farmer in Austria, and he said, okay, so perhaps I'm willing to use your platform. Where are your data hosted? And we said, it's a supercomputer in Poznań, in Poland. And he said, okay, so it's not under law of my country, and I'm not willing to give my data to you, because it follows the different legal rules, different legislation. And so it's not a question about we are giving data to Amazon or any US company. It's really a problem also within Europe. XML encoding I have already mentioned, and one thing that we have unfortunately also discovered is a dead end was if you have in your project or you are willing to use the PostgreSQL, the open source, to use on the OpenStack, which is the open source cloud-based solution, it's not working properly. And we for several cases really have to step back and use only the server-side solution. So you can compensate it with the commercial solutions, but this comes at a price. And that's all I wanted to say, and I would like to thank you for your interest in VGI, Inspire, and everything geo-related.
Thanks, Tomas. Well, any question from the audience? Clearly, we can see that it's not only about technological issues what we are facing here, it's also about trust and confidence, and this sometimes is far more complex to solve than actually questions of encoding or storage. So, no questions? Or maybe you're looking forward for a coffee. Okay, so thanks again, Tomas. So I would like now to introduce the last speaker of the session in this session, which is Paul von Genuchten from GeoCats, who will present us the final results of actually one of the projects I'm following up, which is COBWEB, Citizen Observatories Web, which has developed a crowdsourcing infrastructure platform, which you will speak a bit more about. So, please. I think you have to be closer to the...
I have to stay here.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's great to be in Barcelona. I arrived last night. Good to be back here. So let me, a small question to the audience. Who of you is in university? Who of you is in government? Okay. And who of you is in business? Okay. And who of you did a VGI contribution last month? Okay, that's good. So I'm here on behalf of Jamie Williams, who was at TTC, OGCTC Orlando meeting, so he could not make it today. So I'm speaking on behalf of him as a co-author. I'm reporting on the COBWEB project, which is a 4-year European research project. It started 4 years ago, and we're almost done. So this is the time to give you all our great results. We're a large group of groups around Europe. So there's universities, there's SMEs, but also interesting here is that there is Welsh government here, and there's OGC here. So it's really a various group of participants in this project. So conceptually, this is like an overview. We focused on that middle part. So we have sensor streams or citizen observations coming in, and sensors from the environment. We have authoritative data from Inspire or GEOS, and we mix that all up to reply to questions that live at data clients. So we do validation. We do, that's quality proven and compliant standards. That's why OGC is there in the bottom. We had 3 subject areas to make it a bit more concrete. That's validating Earth observations, and biological monitoring, and flooding. And we did a lot of bottom-up design. So we set out a couple of calls where citizen science groups could apply to have a certain project, and they would get some funding to set up the project, and they would work with our software and give us valuable feedback on the software. So now I'm stepping to the results. This one is a customized version of GeoNetwork, which is an open source catalog product, which is adapted to facilitate more the citizen science use case. So there you can create communities in there, set up projects that you run in the field, and view the results of such an exercise. This is the Field Trip Open Survey platform. It was also an existing open source platform in the UK, but during the project we've improved it, so now you can use it globally and formally set it up as an open source project. It's a survey platform, so you can create surveys which are then available on apps, which people can go into the field and make observations. This was a new product developed in Nottingham. It's a quality assurance and conflation framework. What is very interesting on this one is that it's using BMPN to model the workflow through the quality engine. So you can use any BPMN editor to set up a workflow to do quality assurance on your incoming observations. And then the blocks themselves are WPSs that are set up for this project, but they're very generic, like check the blurriness of an image, or check if a certain species is relevant in this area. So they are very generic building blocks that can be used in such a BPMN workflow. This is very interesting project. It's good to check it out. So then, in the portal, you can then download and view all the results of a citizen science experiment in a map or in a graph. Another aspect of COBWEB is privacy. So European Communion asked us to look into privacy because there's a growing awareness that we as spatial industry are in the heart of the privacy discussion, because a lot of things can be linked through location. And so we did some more theoretical research in that area, and I think that's a nice report to read. Follow the privacy by design best practices. That's kind of our outcome, especially. One of those best practices is authentication, so make sure that any privacy data is at least well protected when you have it. So we have this best practice of SAML federations, which is a best practice by OGC. What we've done on top of that is, because a SAML federation is typically something where governments share data. So how can a citizen participate there? Well, not. So we created this thing which is a SAML bridge. So we use a social media login to give citizens access to the SAML federation. That's also an interesting project. Step 9 was more a theoretical exercise or a lot of discussion. This is an initiative led by OGC where we have come up with a suite for citizen science profile. So an interoperability experiment profile on top of sensor web enablement. And I think this is currently in draft, but the discussion is ongoing, and I think the other citizen science observatories are much involved in this. And then in the end, all these observations are available in the GEOS portal, which was one of the initial goals. Well then, what about Inspire? At first, we thought it's important that we expose our citizen science data to Inspire. So any Inspire-aware client will be able to consume the data. But later we thought, well, maybe that's not very relevant, or is technically challenging, or it's there, but maybe the second one it gets more important. We want to use that Inspire data in our quality assurance and conflation data to check, to use that data to improve the quality validation. And then, while the project went on, we came to this third point. Well, actually, maybe the best contribution of citizens VGI is actually that we can evaluate the data quality of the Inspire data itself. So that was kind of a growing awareness in the project related to Inspire. So most of this is all open source or free software, so just go to these links and download it, test it in your environment. I think these slides will be online, so you can click it. And then let's not forget what it's all about, because we're talking infrastructures here and major big things, but in the end, this is also about having fun in nature and kids looking for butterflies, and that's what we want to facilitate. I'm quite short, but it gives a lot of room for questions.
Thanks, Paul, for your presentation. Well, I have to say that having followed the project since it started back in November 2012, I think this project was especially interesting in the sense that you aim specifically to develop solutions for data integration and quality data assurance. This is, for us, very important because actually it's the first step, as I was saying before, to make sure that this data can actually be reusable, because it allows us to know what is actually whether this data is fit for purpose or not. But also aspects of privacy. When we are collecting data coming from mobile devices, we have to follow certain procedures to make sure that we only collect the data which is actually necessary. We don't take any data which is personal or use those data by any means. And also a third thing that I think this project was especially good at, it was involving grassroots activities in the field and working with them in co-designing applications. This is something that was, actually this project was very pioneer in that sense, and I think this is one big contribution to this field. So any question for Paul? I think back there, yes.
Thank you, Paul, for the presentation. I was wondering if you implemented some kind of standards or existing nomenclatures when you send people out in the fields to collect information on landscape, for example, mapping some kind of land cover. Do they just note what they see, or do you give them a suggestion of what they can choose from?
Well, there's a lot of aspects I could dive in right now. But so you mentioned the land cover use case. We indeed, one of the apps one of the surveys that we did was related to that. And I wasn't personally involved, but for what I heard was that they use this MCS system, and they sorry, too many ideas in my head, so yes, they use this official classification to set up the survey in that way that people would go through a tree of options. Do you see this? Do you see that? And it would give you, in the end, that official classification, but that was behind the screens. The end user probably, you only give him the questions where he can respond to in his context. Does that respond to your question?
Yeah, kind of. We had a I'm from the Eagle group, and we had a back-to-back meeting, I think 1 year ago, with some COBWEB people in Edinburgh in Scotland. And
okay. Mm-hmm.
And we were discussing this land cover, land use classification thing, and I don't remember the name of the colleague from Edinburgh. Probably you know.
Was it Chris Higgins or Krona?
Yeah, Krona.
Krona, yeah.
Yeah, so they, she also had in mind to use this land cover components from the Eagle data model, and I was wondering how far this idea has evolved now.
Yes, so what I know is that we have adopted this field trip survey platform in such a way that it was able to ask questions that were required for this land cover classification, which then led to the fact that such a query could be made, such a survey. Yeah, I think people were actually out there to do that, but I don't know the results right now. But again, I can give you Krona's details and you can ask.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other question? No? Well, I do have another question. Well, it's more, well, I'm not sure whether you have been actually involved in that part of the project, but one of the partners in this project was the Welsh government. We are in the Spine Conference. The role of member states is basic to make this Spire directive implemented. No? And I would like to know what if you know, what are the lessons learned of this project from the side of the Welsh government, how they have applied or they plan to apply the results of this project within their own processes, or if there is no possibility to really take some lessons from their own procedures when the project is finished.
Yeah, so one things to manage in advance is that the people managing Inspire are not the people that were involved here. These were people involved in VGI and citizen science in general. And what I learned is that VGI is really high on their agenda. They have a big interest on participation of the citizens in their government, and they see a role for this kind of frameworks to engage the citizen in their work processes. Yeah.
Thanks. Actually, yeah, I mean, I was asking that because, I mean, it's something that coming from a national mapping agency, sometimes very complicated to see how these new sources that we do agree that this really has an enormous potential, but we cannot leave on the other side the traditional processes to create our own spatial information, and how to create or how to integrate all this data sometimes is a bit challenging, no?
Yeah, in a sense, it's typical that we as mapping people are discussing citizen science, because it's usually more the other groups that deal with citizens than the mapping people.
Yeah, exactly. There's a question there.
I just wanted to follow up on that point. I mean, has anyone managed to close this loop in terms of you have the officialdom and their official data, and you have all of this wonderful information coming in from the public, and how do you then integrate that into the officialdom so that it can become part of the official data? For instance, if it's more up-to-date information, more accurate information, more relevant information. Has anyone actually managed to close that loop?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that from another project, but not specifically related to this one. But for example, in the Netherlands, the National Road Administration, they have set up a couple of meetings with the OpenStreetMap community. Like, hey, we're doing the same thing. Why are we doing it twice? And of course, that's a legal issue. The road government cannot take an OpenStreetMap road, but they can use changes on OpenStreetMap to notify their people to go out in the field to check, hey, is that road indeed changed since the last... So that's where I think it will start. I don't know if those data sets will ever be fused, since there's legal issues. You cannot go into, you cannot claim a certain thing if you are not have been there. Does that reply to your question, more or less? Well, come have a chat at our booth. We're on the conference floor. We have some copper leaflets there also. So,
I would complement your response just to give you an advice. There is a very nice publication from the World Bank. It's called Cross-Sourced Geographic Information Used in Government. I think there are 30 cases of how successfully, more or less successfully, this information, crowdsourced, has been used by public authorities, both in terms of really the produce of information in their own traditional way of production, and also in cases of particular ad hoc projects. So I would recommend you to have a look at this publication. Any other question or interest, or I don't know, to Paul or to any of the previous speakers? No? Well, I think then we will have a bit more time for coffee, actually. we still have 7 minutes, but okay. So I would like to thank again all the speakers and the audience, and I think we will start again at 11 again in this floor. It will not be me chairing the session, but I will be back as a chair at 4 o'clock, I think. So thanks a lot, and see you later.